Hello, hello, hello. Wow. Welcome everybody. Flew pretty fast while I was doing the technology. Thank you for coming out here today to get started on our 5 week journey into culture, diversity, equity, inclusion, and project management. My name is Marlon Solomon. I'm the founder of the organization, the Afrimerican Culture Initiative. We're a Boston-based nonprofit. Our mission is to build cultural bridges in the African diaspora through education, technology, and travel. Our work here in Boston, we do a lot of research and development work, a lot of cutting edge work on our infrastructure, the infrastructure of Boston, and what it actually means to the culture of the places that we live. I work with Northeastern University. We do project management and data analysis on a lot of the environment. I study redlining, urban renewal projects, and our young people that will be joining us this summer will be getting immersed and beginning to look at the community in the way that actually it's been built and not what's going on within the building. So I want to thank you for coming out. It's going to be a great 5 weeks. We're all set up in Madison already. We have a couple of our teachers here and one of our students who's already working. Uh, and we're going to really go into a little bit about what the Afro-American culture, what the Afro-American Academy, which is our restorative project for our young people, to give them an idea of what, of how diversity and cultural diversity, why it's so important. So let's get it started. So yeah, Summer Projects 2023, this is the orientation. We're going to be here in another August 12th to do our graduation. So we're starting here and going to go full circle and be here to do a graduation ceremony. So we're looking forward to that. So this was us yesterday at the Madison Park, just down the street, 75 Malcolm X Boulevard. It's a 5 week program, starts July 10th, which is Monday, and goes all the way to August 12th, which is Saturday, which will be ending right here, okay? And then after that, we're going to have like, there's a 2 week extra earning opportunities where some of these are developed, some of them are, well, we're still in development. And basically, a lot of our youth that have been a lot of our youth that are in the summer job program, we'll get to that a little bit later, you'll have opportunities to earn all the way to the end of summer, all right? So we'll go to that later. But yeah, this is us yesterday, literally, after we set up. She's not here, but anyway, we'll introduce them. And this is our little setup, our classrooms. We have 3 classrooms, B43 and B46, and trust me, we're gonna send out that information, but it's a maze in there. It's huge. Those of us that were here have some returning people here. Jasmine, Kamai, Brianna, nice to see you guys. Excellent. Um, so this is the staff for this year. Um, well, it's me. I do the restorative project management and cultural diversity. Uh, Inkiru, who is our admin manager, she's actually in Charlotte and volunteers virtually. Stephanie, our site coordinator, couldn't be here today, but you'll be seeing her every day. Trisha, Trisha's right there. She will be doing the English. Samantha, she'll be doing the math. Sabrina and Libin are the CFCs. They will be helping us on our field trips. And then we have our volunteers, and definitely want to talk about that a little bit today because our organization basically brings the community together intergenerationally to ensure that young people are having access to older people and being able to interact and learn from. So these are some of our volunteers that have helped us out get here. She's been helping us recruiting. Jacob, he's a 20-year BPS student, BPS teacher. And he's been working, he actually is a partner with me when I started Boston Day and Nubian Academy around the corner here. And so he's been helping us support our teachers. Janice, she's going to be helping our elderly services group. And Aisha has been helping us administratively, you might have got a couple of calls from her. All right. So What do we do at the Afrimerican Academy? We're going to be developing curriculum and history based on a lot of the things that have happened here in Boston. So one of the ones I've been working on, and they'll be further developed this summer, is called Once Upon a Time in Nubian Square, and it gives a little bit of a history of well, the areas that I study in particular are during the '60s, and that is the pivotal key point in between slavery and now that had the most damaging effect on communities of color. A lot of it is not really told because it was sold as urban renewal. Is anybody from Boston here? Right, born and raised. Okay, so y'all know about like the Washington Park urban renewal and all that. That was part of a government systemic way of basically displacing and destroying a lot of the communities that lived here back in those days. So we'll be going to the Boston Athenaeum again, like we did last year, and we'll be looking at the work of Alan Rowan Pright, which is an African American artist here he was in South End here in Boston, and Roxbury, and he drew these stills. So when I was doing my research to find out, more about the people that lived in this very community, I couldn't find any pictures. Literally have been erased. Like there are no pictures of like people having just like a normal day. So it was actually through the brilliance of this man. He's a nice young man here, but he passed away in 2007, and he actually gave me my real appreciation as an engineer, as a civil engineer. Even though I know art and I appreciate art, but I never really. I think this guy really brought it home for me because I was doing all this research to find out about these communities, and I couldn't find any information. And it was through his pictures of him drawing stills of the outside during normal everyday life here in Boston that allowed me to get a picture and a glimpse into what the harmony that these communities had. So these were indigenous African American cultural hubs. These were communities in which they had, as you can see here, that one's called Back to School, and this one is called Out on the Parade. And this one shows, so these areas are no longer existing, all right? Once upon a time they did. In fact, this parade, up to now, I still don't know what they were celebrating. We don't, it's just lost into history and time. So we want to find out more about that, and we want to do more studies. I took this to a school, and one of the ladies that lived there said that the reason why they had these young ladies picking up, because back in those days, the community would send young ladies, maybe 18, 19, while mother is at work, and they would go pick up kids for all the block and cook food for them. And so like kind of like a cooperative daycare run by the community, just naturally through traditions and practice and handed down practices. So that's kind of what we'll be doing, storylines along that, right? So we can turn them into YouTube. But now what happened to those communities? All right, and this is a red line map of Boston, but like I said, stay ready, urban renewal. Does anybody recognize where we are, where this picture is located? Oh, anybody want to say it? Nobody knows? Look very well. What is that? Yeah. We're literally on the ground of the Dudley Street Baptist Church. How many of us knew that? You're literally on the ground. This is an old picture. I've sent them new aerial photos, but they haven't given me an update. But this is where we are literally. This is where the site of the library is now. That's the police station. The courthouse is right there. This is in 1963. This is the old Dudley station, what they used to call the South Loop. This train line goes to Forest Hills. All right. This is Dudley Street Baptist Church. It was the heart and soul of this community. It is where the indigenous African American community learn how to play instruments, learn how to communicate, and of course worship, have marriages, have all sorts of stuff. And we're in a very library that makes no mention of it. No, you can come to the library every day and you will never know that you were literally on the ground. This is why it's called Nubian Square, because it was the heart and soul of the African American community. So this is this is why our data-driven curriculum development is so important, because we are going to be telling stories that happen in these communities. And you say, well, what does that have to do with today? There's a 33-year life expectancy difference between where we are today and Back Bay. All right, so that means that if a person was born in Back Bay and born here the same day, if the person from Back Bay passed on today, the person from in Roxbury passed on in 1990. All right, so it's so important. And why is this? And there's so much national implications and so much opportunity for those of us to understand what we're talking about, especially if you're going to be in science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. This map represents every red line map and all the indigenous African American communities that were leveled nationwide, all at the same time during the 60s. What city do you want? That Detroit one, that means Motown, the community that birthed Motown. The one in New York means Harlem. All right. So that is how infrastructure has been used to negate and to crush a lot of these independent communities. Who's heard of the Negro Leagues? Right? The Negro Leagues were literally these little towns that I'm talking about playing against each other, creating what we call culturally generated revenue. All right. So if you didn't know that, and it's so basic to where we are, how can we actually build for the future if we don't know where we're coming from, or we're looking past where we're coming from, right? So that's just a little history of why we're here and why it's so important about the work that we do. All right. So what do the content that we'll be working on, right? So we have it's going to be a custom program content, right? So a lot of this work, it's not necessarily custom, but we're the ones assembling, doing the research and putting it together. All right. It's project based. So while you'll be learning little elements and having little restorative project management, all these different elements, and I'll go through them little bit by little bit. Because it's incorporated into a project, it allows us to have youth that are 24 to 14 working in teams. And everyone will have their own different responsibilities worked on a team. We're all about leadership and providing opportunities for young people to lead. All right. So restorative project management technology, I'll be handling that. We'll be using AI to do a lot of research and a lot of the normal, I'll teach you a lot of tools that you use for project management. Project management sounds a fancy word, but everybody project manage. If you want to do your hair, it's a project. It requires, you have to have your specifications. You can't just come with any kind of like, oh, I want this, I want my hair low, I want dreadlocks, that's a specification. There's a cost involved, right? It's not free. You're either going to go to barber, maybe even you want to go to the barbers or go to salon, you have to drive there or get an Uber. That's a cost inherent, all right? And finally, it takes time. And if you don't account for those three elements of a project, you may mess up. Say, hey, man, I need money to go to get my hair cut. Okay, great. Here's 20. How much does the haircut cost? 20 bucks. We love that. But guess what? I need to get there. I don't have any way to get there, so I need money to get there. So that's inherent in the cost, right? So if you're not understanding of how much, so it doesn't really cost 20 bucks. It costs 20 bucks plus your transportation to and fro, right? So these are some of the other things that that project-based learning is all about. Cultural diversity, equity, inclusion. I do that part too. I grew up, so my background is, I'm African American, but I was raised in Africa. Grew up in Lagos, Nigeria. And so my diversity program is based on my lived experience of understanding intimately the African, the Nigerian, and in particular the Yoruba culture and its structure. Okay, that's very clear, not the overlay particular context, but the structure. And then now saying, okay, how do I overlay my African American? God bless. So my mom, she married a Nigerian and lived in Nigeria for 40 years. All right, and she brought cinnamon rolls and brownies and things there, and it was like that. And so I opened up a business, and people were like, "What? Burritos here in Africa?" But she brought that in culture over there. And so growing up there, I did the compare and contrast to figure out, okay, what are the differences? So this organization started to kind of bring those communities together, but it grew and grew and grew, and my understanding grew to where now I am actually like developing out some of these histories. So like when I talk about the history of the land, culture is attached to land, and there's Yoruba land, and that land, they know the history of it. So if we overlay that in our context, what is the history of Roxbury? The land. It's not up. It's not non-negotiable. You must know it. Otherwise, what are you doing? How are you passing on the heritage that you've inherited from your ancestors that used to live here? So cultural diversity, we don't use racial classifications. We use cultural classifications. Are you Jamaican? Are you indigenous African American? Are you Nigerian? Because those are more aligned with Martin Luther King's vision of a beloved community, which is based on content of a character, not on your race. So if we're looking at it from that point of view, then I can look at certain people and know that if I design programs, I'm designing them for certain people with certain cultural background. So like this area, even though it was owned by African Americans, it was a lot of Jewish ownership. But the Jewish ownership that was here was from 1890. So they were very, very close with the African American community and allowed for a lot of opportunities and growth. And that's why this place is called Nubian Square, because of that shared history. So that's why it's very important. So if you look at if you look at it through race, that white people are this or white people are that, you may be missing out on some of the allies that have traditionally, culturally been well with us. All right. We do have executive English and math, and we'll let the English. You guys want to come up and talk a little bit about what you do, or you want me to handle it? All right, fine. So we have executive English and math. Basically, as a project manager, somebody who's in science, technology, engineering, and math, you don't need to. We're gonna be doing technical writing and note taking and things along those lines. You don't need to write a big Macbeth. We need bullet points, like a resume, right? You're surrounded by technical writing, any kind of instructions at the bus stop, anything, when you look at the sodas and you see all that, that's technical writing. So if you're an engineer, you need to be clear, you need to have very, very, very concise language, and it's not easy because you're taking a bunch of information and just have to put it in one lines, like a resume, right? If you want to write your resume, it's not about, oh yeah, I grew up in this date and I was doing this and I love this no, I do this, and this is why. All right. So that's the kind of writing we'll be talking about. Nothing I give you is extra. You have BPS in your normal school to give you the extras. The math, there will be no like trig, there will be no like geometry, but there will be minor geometry. But what we're teaching you is to be an entrepreneur and to come into your community and create and be a good entrepreneur and create a business. This is very important to our work. Cultural hubs is what we study. We were going to go to all the cultural hubs here in Boston, because when you create money in your community, the taxes go to your community. If you live here and work downtown, the taxes go downtown. Then your school here doesn't get the money. And that's how the system works. It's all based on location, location, location. Right? So that's why we want you to be entrepreneurs. So we want to give you stuff to do our taxes. We want to give you stuff that, like what is a checkbook, and what the routing number and all these other little elements that you need, right? So very, very basic, but very, very important. And you'll have a lot of practice to do that. Displaying graphs, giving presentations. We're all about expression. In Africa, we express, then we write. We don't write and then express. So that we want you to be able to express and be strong in your expression, so you can translate that to being an executive when you look at data, analyze data, and give presentations to make decisions. Financial literacy and entrepreneurship, we do have a group coming in, and a lot of your math examples and things will be incorporated into financial literacy and what it takes to make your own personal wealth. We do have cultural nutrition, health, and wellness. We try to get out into future chefs and try to use a place, but they have the same programs. It's very difficult for her to get 40 kids or 30 kids in there. But we will have a lady coming in. We'll talk about that a little later. I mean, because we have the other bits to do. Restorative practices and social emotional learning, extremely key. This was actually formed by our students. And it's because some of our kids are MEDCO youth, so they're outside of their community for the majority of their school career, always being the tip of the spear. That's what we call them here. So meaning like your community's got the spear and you're the tip, breaking down barriers. And you're most likely going to be the only people of color. As smarter you are, the most you'll be the only people of color in these rooms. And we'll need to have you culturally supported as well as in tune with your community. So when you go through that process and become 35, you don't, oh, I don't even know what's going on in my own community anymore, right? Then African diaspora history and civics, like we talked about the Dudley Street Baptist Church. That's something we're going to be. There are a lot of other history things. We're going to be going to Wally's Jazz Cafe. That's the last indigenous African American, family-owned jazz place. So that area was, like I said, the culturally generated revenue was from jazz music. There's a place called Jazz Alley that all of us should be able to go and have and listen to the greatest jazz musicians. That place no longer exists because of the destruction of these areas. So we'll learn about history like that. And then my last, closed mouth don't get fed, part of the thing. And a lot of my students that were very opinionated, and we have an Afrimerican TV YouTube channel, and we have this platform because we want to develop our students their voice, so that not all of us want to be in front of cameras, but you can see that there's a lot of stuff to do behind the scenes in terms of setting up hardware, editing. There's a lot of stuff to do. So, but the idea is that we want to have we want to develop art. So we don't have like a newspaper, like a school newspaper. We have a school YouTube channel. All right. And that is, that's very key to what we do. All right. So that is our goal. These are some of our projects that we've been working on already, but we'll be developing some new ones, going through some old curriculum upgrades, especially the students who have already been with me or are a bit more advanced. This is more of our data redline study. This is about our cultural pathways to understanding. We're going with the Jewish community, although we have other Chinese American, Italian American, we plan to work on this here. And then one of my favorite one is redline music. All right, redline music, because one thing I tell people is that culture is attached to land. If you design the land to not accommodate culture, eventually the culture of the people will change. So our redline music talks about, actually, a lot of people don't realize, when they destroy these communities, the ability to practice, the classrooms that were used. Hey, Camara, the classrooms that were used to teach people how to play instruments were gone. So by the late 80s, a lot of the youth that would have been able to play instruments didn't, and they had created rap. Really, I keep on saying that's a mistake. Rap was already there before. How many people know how old rap is, or hip hop? Celebrating a very big anniversary this year. Why do you want to go? Wait, go ahead, Jasmine. How old is hip hop? 50 years old. August 11, 1973, DJ Kool Herc had a party in Harlem, in Brooklyn, Bronx, New York. And that party signifies the first hip hop party. But hip hop is just our music before without instruments. That's the difference. But rapping, James Brown was rapping. Rapping is nothing new. Cameo, all these guys were rapping. It is just that they were playing instruments. So that lack of instruments and stuff, we'll talk about that. But yeah, that is one of my favorite. We're going to go to the hip hop archives again. But these are some of the other projects that we'll be working on. All right. Last year we started it, but we didn't really finish it off. And this year is way more developed. We have our leadership teams. And our leadership teams are basically, they're developed from the Divine Nine fraternities and sororities. So the idea behind that is that if we're teaching cultural diversity, the main problem is that we all already have our cultures. So we're already pretty hardwired to be biased towards our own cultures, right? So these are basically mock cultures. They're group ethnicities that are kind of arbitrary. So allow us to look at it and de-engineer some of these ideas that we already have about culture, right? And start looking. So each one has its particular cultural artifacts. We'll be doing there'll be a form that we'll all fill out to try and determine. You can pick your own culture, but the only difference you can have, everybody can be in any one. So I would say it's universal membership. But we wanted to create spaces for male leadership. We wanted to create spaces for female leadership, and we also wanted to create gender neutral leadership roles and communal. So you would have your own space to work and to figure out how you want to do leadership. And but like I did the quiz, I'm actually more in the Panthera group. So it's not about like your gender per se, but in leadership, just as the culture of that. Think of them as little cultures, little ethnicities. So in that culture, they always have women leaders. That's just the idea. But it helps you de-engineer yourself from being Haitian or Jamaican or Nigerian and look at yourself as an arbitrary um, uh, uh, tradition. And anyway, it's very important, and we'll be enjoying that this year. And then in our graduation, we'll have some recognition of those things. So now we've kind of gone over the content and what that means and what that does. All right, Angel, so can you pan on this? So, well, You're switching it up? Good job. All right. She's changing to this camera so that this will be the Zoom. All right. So yeah, these are just a lot of the things, and all this will be is available. And yeah, we're all done. Thank you very much. And you can see some of our culprits. You can see some.